This is just one episode of a full series. If you would like instant access to this series and other future series before we release them publicly, well, head on over to MedCircle.com and become a subscriber for free. Plus, we'll also give you instant access to videos that we never release online. I'll see you at MedCircle.com. Anxiety disorder affects 40 million adults in the US, making it the most common mental health condition. It's highly treatable, yet only 1/3 of those suffering actually receive treatment. So we sat down with the leading expert on anxiety disorders, Dr. Ramani. She is one of the most sought after mental health professionals and definitely one of MedCircle's most favorite people to have on our channel here. Thank you for being here, Dr. Ramani, to talk to us about anxiety.
Thank you, Kyle. Thanks for having me. And it is always such a joy to be able to talk with MedCircle watchers and listeners about any form of mental illness or just how to cope with the stuff of life. And anxiety disorders actually is one of my favorite topics.
I have the privilege of sitting with you again and again and again, but even when I go back and watch our discussions, I learn something new.
Oh, thank you.
It's amazing how intricate this topic is, but how easy you make it.
Well, I appreciate it. I kind of wish my undergraduates felt the same.
Listen up, undergraduates.
But I mean, honestly, teaching all these years has been a place where I've been forced to really make these issues understandable for a wide variety of audiences and for my clients as well, and even their family members, to help them understand this territory. I think that the worst thing we can do is take mental health information and make it confusing for people. By making it as clear as possible, we really are doing a tremendous service to both families, friends, people living with mental illness, anybody who works with folks in this area.
Absolutely. Now, some people might be meeting you for the first time. So what makes you an expert on the topic of anxiety?
You know, I have 2 private practices here in Los Angeles, and I see such a wide range of clients. And I will say that anxiety is the one theme that cuts across all of them. I don't care if a client's coming in with depression, with a substance use issue, with relationship problems, with school problems, you name it. In all of these patterns, anxiety becomes a core issue, whether it's an issue that's on the side that's making things worse. Sometimes it gurgles up to being the key issue that they're bringing in. But I've never worked with a client where anxiety wasn't a key part of it and where we didn't have to work on it. Like, that's just how it is. In fact, it's the first topic I teach in my abnormal psych class, because from there, everything builds out. There's not a single mental illness out there for which anxiety is not a key piece. Really, the only one where it's not is psychopathy. A person who's a psychopath, they feel no anxiety. Otherwise, it's anxiety all the time.
So would it be fair to say that in order to be an expert on any mental health topic, you have to fully understand anxiety?
Absolutely. You don't understand anxiety, you don't understand mental health. And in fact, it's really where Freud made his name. Freud's theories were all very much focused on anxiety, on worry, on rumination. So it's really been sort of the beginnings of our field in terms of how we do therapy. And since then, we've learned so much about anxiety, and yet it still plagues many of us. We sort of live in times when anxiety is always present. The question is, how do we prevent it? How do we manage it? How do we treat it? That's going to be different depending on the various issues we're going to talk about.
Yeah, well, we answer all those questions in this series, and so I'm really excited about that. Why is it, though, so important for anybody, whether they think they have anxiety themselves, whether they know or don't know somebody with anxiety, to learn this information?
A big reason is because, as I said, anxiety is often the reason someone gets into the door of a therapist's office. They're anxious because they don't know what's happening in their relationship. They're anxious because they can't solve a problem in their life. They're so anxious they feel like they can't date. You know, there's a whole range of reasons why people enter a therapist's office. I'd say in most cases it often relates to anxiety. Number 2, a lot of people don't know how much worry is too much worry. How much worry is just sort of the regular worry of life. You know, are my kids going to be okay? Am I going to get married someday? Am I going to be able to pay my bills? And how much of it is when the worry crosses the line, and we really need to get it into mental health care to really address it in a much more systematic way. A lot of people don't know where that line is, and it's not that cut and dried, so it's going to vary from person to person.
Well, I've been in therapy for years, and I don't even know if I know that line.
And I think it changes depending on where you are in life. Like, so for example, if a person's already going through a difficult time, it may take a smaller threshold of a problem to push them into relatively paralytic anxiety.
Okay.
In addition, there's lots of individual differences. Some people have a different kind of temperament in the face of anxiety. They just withstand it better. And other people, it's really an intolerable state for them. They tend to find it much more challenging to cope with it and find that it negatively affects their life much more quickly. So there's also individual differences in how we manage anxiety. And finally, there's also the issue with anxiety that people cope with it differently. And unfortunately, sometimes the way people cope with anxiety makes it worse. They might drinking, using drugs, spending money, gambling, like problematic coping styles. Now you've opened a Pandora's box of new problems.
Right.
So we want to give people healthy ways of coping with anxiety, whether it's everyday anxiety or at the level of a full-blown anxiety disorder.
Well, in this series, we're going to talk about what causes it, obviously some treatment options, and overall education, and what patients and supporters can do when it comes to anxiety. What if you had to choose one for the patients? Let's start there. What would be the one thing that you would hope people would get after watching this series?
That there are a lot of things that you can even do on your own to help you cope with anxiety. And sometimes it can be as simple as thinking about something differently. And I think that that power that everybody has within them to take an issue and think about it in a different way is an anxiety management tool we all carry within us at all times.
So good. So good. I can't wait to hear about that in future episodes. Now, what about for the supporters? Because if you don't have anxiety, you probably know somebody who does. What's a one takeaway they could get?
Be patient. Be patient with people who are experiencing anxiety. They're not doing this to aggravate you. They're not doing this to make you anxious. It's very real for the person who's experiencing it. And I think sometimes people burn out on hearing the same thing over and over and over again. And I guess the measure of love is that you can patiently hear someone else's story. And that means for the people caring for people who are struggling with anxiety disorders, make sure you're taking care of yourself, whether that's your own therapy or your own outlets. Nobody can be superhuman with that, but sometimes your job is not to fix somebody else's problem. Sometimes all you can do is simply be there and give them a sounding board. Sometimes it just sort of lets some of that anxiety out. If we talk about something, it sort of clears it out for a minute and we feel better.
Great. Well, I'm really excited for the rest of this series. Patience is a virtue. And so remember, if you would like to see this series as it comes out, you can by subscribing to our YouTube channel. From there, each week we'll release the next episode. But remember, if you want it all right now, we're in the give it to me now generation. If you want it right now, you can. Just go to MedCircle.com, subscribe for free, and you can watch this whole series right now. Plus, I haven't told you this yet. Okay, this is brand new. My therapist thinks that I have social anxiety. And I kind of agree, kind of don't. And so would you be willing to do a mock therapy session with me? You ask me the questions. We'll put you in this chair. You ask me the questions, and then see if I do and what tips you might be able to provide or what I can gain out of that.
Kyle, are you trying to get free therapy from me?
I'm just trying to get free therapy. The insurance is tough. I need free therapy.
But I'd be happy to. And you know what? Social anxiety disorder may be the most common of the anxiety disorders. So I think it'll be really useful for people to see some of what we do, how we talk about it, how we think about it, and some of the things we make people try. And some of them are uncomfortable.
Okay. Well, I'm happy being uncomfortable. So I'm very excited for this series all about anxiety. Dr. Ramani, thank you so much for being here.
Thanks, Kyle.